I'm here with Oscar Willis. We're going to be talking about his time in Korea. Thank you for sitting down with me. I really appreciate it. How you doing, sir?
Doing real good, thank you.
When did you join the Navy? And when you deployed to Korea, what was your rank and job at that time?
Okay, I joined the Navy September 28th, 1951. And I finished boot training, I think, in January of 52, and got orders to a destroyer. And shortly after that, we left for Korea in 52. And at that time, I was a seaman apprentice, as we call it, Navy, two-striker. And I did various jobs aboard ship. Matter of fact, it was my battle station was on a quad 40 millimeter, and the job, I understand, was as a deck seaman, whatever. And because of the segregation in the Navy at that time, they tried to make me a steward's mate, you know. But that lasted, I think, one storm in the Pacific. I was serving lunch to the commanding officer in the officer's wardroom, and the ship rolled, and I dumped a bowl of soup in the captain's lap. After that, I became a hospital corpsman. You know, he didn't want to be near his wardroom. You know, and teasingly, you know, he said he knew I wanted to become a corpsman. You know, so I became what we call a corpsman striker in Korea. If there's any problems, whatever, naturally I would be the medical personnel to handle those. And I was taught, we did have one doctor on board that tin can. We were the flagship, as we call it. And we got to Korea. I think we stopped in Japan first, naturally, and re-outfitted. And arrived in Korea, and we were assigned duty in Wonsan Harbor, which was a pretty tough place at that time. And we did lose one ship, you know, in that area. But our job was to draw fire for the battleship Wisconsin. Was out on the horizon. You could just barely see her mast. And with the big 16-inch guns, you know, she would tear a mountainside down if necessary. And I did this for, I was in Korea from 52 and 53. So after I left Korea, then that's when I went to school to become a hospital corpsman.
Since the Navy was desegregated only a couple of years before that, what was your experience as a black man mixed in with white soldiers? Sailors, sorry.
Right, sailors. Well, on a tin can, it was my first ship. We only had, what, I think 210 sailors on there. And after a few months, you know, you become part of the crew. And as long as you are aboard ship and you're out to sea, whatever, you're just one family. And you didn't realize, understand, how people felt until you came into port and everybody went their separate ways. The blacks would go to their neighborhoods, the whites would go to their areas of town. And like many people say even today, churches at 11 o'clock on Sunday are the greatest segregated thing in the world, because the whites go to white churches, black go to black churches, or whatever. And the military somewhat was the same way. You know, the brothers, as we called ourselves, would do things together, and naturally the whites would do their thing together. So that, but once you got aboard ship in a wartime condition, you know, you're all the same. You didn't see color at that time. You saw navy blue, as we call it, and everybody was navy blue until you got back into port and you went your separate ways. Yeah.
Since this was your first deployment, what did you expect to happen when you got there?
Well, being at the time, I think it was, what, 18 years old, you know, and I knew we knew all the war stories with John Wayne and all this stuff, and being a young person, you expected some things like that, but when you got shot at the first time, that changed. You knew it was serious, and you knew you had to be serious, you know. So they say once your first combat experience, you grow up real quick, you know, And I think that's what happened with me. Yeah.
Tell me about the first moment you realized you were going to be fighting for your survival, excuse me, and what you found helped you keep your head.
Well, I think it was listening to the senior personnel around you. You know, they had been there before, been there, done that, and once they would lecture you and tell you how things you know, should be done, and it goes in one ear, okay, fine, I understand that, but that was, you know, you're older than I am, but that's old folk stuff, right? But as soon as you come under combat, you know, or whatever, and things start to happen, you'd be surprised how true the things that you've been taught come to be. And if you don't do those things exactly as you're trained, you could get hurt bad. So then you start to think that way. You start to do things as you're told. And you're told to do dumb things, as a young person might say, but once you need to use that thing or use that procedure, it does make sense. And just thank God, understand, I made it through Korea, and you know, and I'm here today because I listened.
When everyone was being shot at, as you've explained, did you find that the racism and just the prejudice disappeared, or was it still like it was even in combat sometimes, maybe in a lull or in a downtime in between fire, before everything had changed?
Yeah, I think in a combat situation, there's no you know, racism or whatever, you know, because if a person is wounded and I'm the corpsman, I hear corpsman up, or corpsman I need help, not white corpsman, not black corpsman, or whatever. It's corpsman. If you're in some other situation, like in a motor whaleboat or going out to pick somebody up or whatever, you know, like I said, you're navy blue, and that's the only thing you see is navy blue. And those guys would give their life for me as I would give my life for them, and say, it's my shipmate, it's this other sailor or whatever. It's not white sailor, it's not black sailor, it's not Mexican American sailor, you say. It's sailor. And we give our lives for, you know, our shipmates. And I look at the 5 Sullivans, you say. There were 5 brothers on this one tin can, just like I was, okay? And because one was trapped below deck when they got torpedoed, the other 4 was not going to leave until they got that brother out of there. They all went down with the ship. And that's how strong I think the Navy is when it comes to a combat situation. You wouldn't leave another sailor in a burning compartment or whatever, you know. You're going to get him out of there somehow, you know. And this is the attitude that I think it grows on you as you're in the Navy for any length of time. And you do these things by not thinking, you know. It's just automatic, just an instinct, you know. Someone is hit and you're going to get to it. So anyway, you have to say the separatism didn't happen until you come into port and everybody goes his own ways.
Was there any instance where a white sailor exercised that, or was that just across the board?
That was just across the board, you know, really, because once, let's say you go aboard ship, okay, you become a part of that ship. And every sailor, white, black, whatever, Hispanic, you become a part of that ship, you know. And we used to say, sailors, they used to say, you know, would fight all the time on the beach. So what are you guys fighting about? They'd say, this guy called my bucket of boats a rusted bucket. Say, whatever, so I'm fighting for my ship. And this is the attitude. If one of my sailors is in a fight, all of my sailors are going to be in that fight, you know. And because it's a thing, and I don't know whether it's camaraderie, but you become family, you know. That's my shipmate. I may not know his name or whatever, but he wears a patch, you know, your ship name. I've seen him. I know him. He's from my ship. And, you know, you'll do everything you can to protect that one shipmate. Same thing in combat, yeah. If one is hit on deck or whatever, you're going to do everything in your power. For an example, if one falls over the side, okay, man overboard drill. You know, you do Addison turns. You come back until you find that sailor. You know, and or until the old man says, okay, we're in a situation where we can't stay here, whatever. Then the ship behind us, or the rescue squad, or the Coast Guard, somebody's going to look for that sailor. You know. So that's how I guess close-knit military people are. You know. It doesn't have to be, say, sailor. If I'm on the beach and I see a soldier in trouble, you know, hey, he's military, and you kind of stick your nose in there to help that guy. Air Force or Coast Guard, Marine Corps. You know.
What did you learn about your enemy? Did you feel you were helping the South Koreans, or did you feel like America had gotten into a proxy war that was too big to handle?
Yeah, I never thought too much about that because in a wartime situation, you're fighting for your ship and your shipmates. You say the political part of it, that's DC stuff, you know, and after you come out of a combat situation and sit down and have time to think about things, you say, well, why are we doing that, or whatever, But military under orders said, hey, you go and do, and this is what, you sign, you raise your right hand to do that. And if you have any integrity about you, you're going to do those things. So you don't think about why I'm shooting at this guy, or why is he shooting at me, or why whatever. You just do your job. Then after the smoke clears, and like I say, you get out of the area, then you might think about why we're doing that, whatever, but not doing a combat situation.
After the war ended, what were your thoughts on a military career? Was Vietnam already in your sights, or did you feel done?
Well, no, because my discharge from my first cruise was in 1955, I think. And I was in the Navy, we call it a kiddie cruise. I went in at 17 years old. And you had to be discharged before you were 21. The day before you were 21, I was discharged. And I stayed out a year and tried to go to college a little bit and work 2 jobs. But back in the 50s, there wasn't a lot of employment, for young folks, especially young black kids like I was, still young. And I'd gotten married just before I got out of the Navy in '54. We were married, and I had a little family, So I said, well, I see how I was trying to, take care of them, trying to go to school, trying to, and I said, this is not working. I said, I was working 2 jobs, trying to go to school too. And I said, no, I can't do this. So I re-enlisted, went back in the Navy, and at that time, I started getting more schools, I went to lab school, we call it medical technology, became a lab technician. And at that time, Vietnam was just about to break open, and I think they started in, I was in, Vietnam, I'll put it that way, in 66 and 67, but I was in training in 65, okay. After I had gone to lab school, I'd gone to independent duty school and a bunch of other schools in the Navy. So then I didn't think about going into combat again. I said, well, I kind of know what to do, what to expect from Korea. A lot of the young people going into Vietnam, they weren't that lucky. It was because they had to learn what I had to learn, in Korea. And so I felt more at ease going into combat, especially I was with the Marine Corps then. When Vietnam started, there were 2 categories of hospital corpsmen, those going to the Marines and those coming from the Marines. So we naturally, we are the medical department for the Marine Corps. And so I didn't rebel or whatever, as I was getting older then, and I kind of knew the ropes, as you might say. So, and it was sometimes, times in the military, it's enjoyable. You have good times. When you're on shore duty with your family, you do your job or whatever, and it's almost like going to work an 8-hour day. But when you're called for a combat role, hey, you got to go. Yeah.
When you were in schooling in the lab program, was the feeling of camaraderie and almost a lack of racism there, even in a learning situation, or did that was that kind of exclusive to combat?
Yeah, some of it was still there, you know, really. Because I had one chief petty officer tell me when I was in lab school, and said, "Well, you can't learn this." You know, so what do you mean? He said, "Well, blacks can't learn this lab work. You know, you have to be a physical person, you know, whatever." But and I looked at him and said, "Well, okay, I'll show you." And after the school itself was 14 months long, 18 months I guess it was, because I had blood bank too. And I came out in the upper third of the class, you know. And at that time I was so surprised. I said, "Well, when you tell me personally that I can't do something, I'll show you," you know. And I know there was one incident in Vietnam where this black Marine had contracted malaria, and it was Plasmodium falciparum malaria. And some doctor on the repos had sent him to the repos for treatment, would send him back. You know, said blacks can't have malaria because in their mind, sickle cell anemia, that's a disease that affects black people. The blood cells could not support the malaria parasite, so that they thought all blacks don't have sickle cell anemia. I've seen one white nurse with sickle cell anemia, you know, and when that happened, then they were so surprised. So I had to send this Marine back to the repos 2 or 3 times, and I sent the slides with them to show the malaria parasite from this guy, and then he had malaria so bad that all the cells in his system had started to rupture, okay? And then he went into a state of what we call black water fever. The kidneys were about to shut down, okay, because of all the hemoglobin from the blood cells. And finally, you know, when they saw that, the kidney problem, they accepted him and treated him, you know, and hopefully he's okay today. But things like that a lot of Caucasians, they didn't know. They said, okay, blacks is this and blacks whatever. And once they get over the things like that, to say, well, hey, we're all people and we're all the same. It's the only difference between you and another white person is the melanin in your skin. I have the dark melanin, where the white person has the lighter or white melanin. That's the only difference. Under your skin, if you open us up, we are identical, you know. And once they started to learn that, you know, that I'm sure they appreciated, you know, my insistence pushing that guy back to be treated. Because in a combat area, I can certain things I can do, and I can't, you know, do sophisticated treatment like you know. And so finally, you understand, they accepted the guy, and I did get an apology from the repos at that time. And little things like that, when we don't understand each other, you know, is what causes that separatism.